It's time to get started. Hello. Take out my headphones and turn down the music, although I was kind of digging that. That was nice. So yeah, good afternoon. Hello and welcome back. This is a live stream. I say welcome back because I haven't been live streaming for a bit, but I'm glad to be back live streaming. This, of course, will be recorded, so you might not be watching this live if you're a student in my class, but that's all right. That's how these things are meant to work. So good to see you. I see 3 people online. That's better than nothing. If you are watching, if you don't mind saying hi, it'd be great to know who's out there. Like I said, it's being recorded. So this is a live stream for DGST 101 Intro to Digital Studies. I'm the professor for this class, Zach Whalen, and I'm live streaming because this is a online summer class at the University of Mary Washington. So hello, morning, Paul. Good to see you online again. Cool. So today I don't have like a big lecture planned or anything. I just have a couple of things to show you, and then mainly I want to spend as much time as I need to explaining how to work with timeline.js, because that's the final thing you'll be doing for your object lesson project this week. After you've collected all your information, you'll be putting it together into a timeline. You might still be working on the information, of course, but I want to show you how to work with the timeline.js software so that you can feel confident using that and then start putting your information into it. So that's the main agenda for today. I just had this pulled up because this is one other thing I would like to talk about today. However, I just noticed that the essay that I uploaded is like the wrong pages. So I printed this, I created this PDF extracting it from the book, but it grabbed the wrong pages when I did that. So I just didn't look at how the printing software I was using to extract the PDF was counting the pages, and I thought it was starting with the actual pagination, it should have started with 30, but in fact it started with the 30th page, including all the front matter. So that was inaccurate. So I'll fix that later, but honestly, don't worry too much about this, right? I mean, you've got your object lesson assignment. I just think this is a fascinating essay, and I think it's really cool stuff. So that's why I wanted to share it with you. It's a way to understand how we negotiate and how we talk about electronic objects in our homes, not just that they're there, but that they perform certain roles. And this is an article by a media archaeologist, a media archaeology scholar, Erkki Huhtamo, who talks about the Victorian precedents of the kinds of things we do and have done with video games in the 20th century and 21st century. He talks about how these are domestic media devices, and these are things that were all the rage in the 19th century, but very different kinds of things, I guess, but often based on optics and optical illusions and animation and things like that. And it was like a cool thing to bring home and put in your living room, just like video games were in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and onward. So it's a really interesting way that he's drawing this connection. He's saying this new thing that we think is new actually has this really long history that you didn't realize. And I think that's cool. And I also think it's great the way he talks about and shows different specific examples of that, but also interesting old media technology, which I think is fascinating. So I'll get the correct one. Yeah, like this, the megalethoscope. I love how all these things have cool names, like these crazy long names like this. That's what that one is. And then stereopticons, of course. So I'll correct this and upload it. I would love for you to look at it. I think it's great, but mainly one might be fun if you're looking to kill some time, is just kind of look for examples of 19th century media devices and see what you can find. And then if you do find something interesting, share it in the share it in Discord, because I think these are pretty cool. Yeah, so here's cool. So here's a Google a Wikipedia page with several examples of these. Yeah, phenakistoscope, zoetrope, praxinoscope. There's also a zoopraxinoscope. So these are cool. They're domestic media devices, often not electronic, so they're outside of the realm of our assignment, but pretty interesting. Anyway, I'll update the PDF link, and you can look at it if you are so inclined. It's a pretty interesting document. I've got it in Perusal, as you can see here, so if you are interested in looking at it, you'll find it there. It's also uploaded in the files section of our Canvas course, just as the raw PDF, but it's not very, it's not a very clear scan for that one. This is a much clearer scan, but I have to correct the pages so that you can see the whole thing. Okay, great. So the other 2 things this week, of course, the 2 important things this week, of course, are the object lesson, which you can see the assignment page here, and the week 3 reflection and report. I'll say briefly on the reflection and report. This week, I've asked you a lot, so basically go back through all the tasks for each day, like posting the GIF of I asked you to create a GIF based on David Federley's movie, E-Wasteland, right? So that's the kind of thing you should list on this, the reflection and report, participating in discussions, any of those little kind of day-to-day things that I ask you to do. Those are the things that I would like for you to talk about in this reflection and report, in addition to, of course, the object lesson, which is the big thing this week. All right, so the object lesson, this is it. Lots of information here in the assignment page, and I've talked about it a lot in the videos this week. So I hope you have a good idea of what you're doing with this. It is due today, but like most things for this class, I'm not super worried about you getting it done by midnight tonight. Do turn it in if it's late. Don't worry about it being late. The only issue is that we're going to be starting again on Monday with week 4. So if you're still working on week 3, those will overlap, and that might be a bit harder. So definitely try to get it done as soon as you can. I'll be working on grades tomorrow for week 2, and if you're done with week 3. Try to get it done tonight. But hopefully this is making sense. But if you're still struggling, like if you're still trying to figure out how to find this information, then please ask. I can help usually. Not always. Like I still haven't been able to find much about that chip I found in the Guitar Hero controller. But it's, I was very successful at finding out about that Logitech chip in the Logitech trackball mouse that I took apart on the video yesterday. So, I can help. I'm happy to help. It's fun. I like it. Okay, so the other thing then, of course, is the timeline. So like I said, I do want to spend most of my time today talking about timeline.js. So I'm going to open it up here. In the notes for today, I sent several tips, giving you some advice that goes a little bit beyond what they advise here. There is some good advice here. There are some great examples here of some things that people have done with timeline.js, and also the tutorial. It's just like step by step, right? 1, 2, 3. Very easy to follow, hopefully. But sometimes there are like things that people, like common mistakes people make when they're putting data into their timeline, and that's what some of my tips were oriented towards. So I want to kind of walk you through these steps, even though they're here, you can read them. I think it's often helpful to see someone do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and that'll take up the bulk of this video. Probably not a whole hour, certainly. I just want to go through it, and I think it'll be helpful. Also, if as I'm going, if you see me do something that seems confusing or I move too fast, then please ask me to stop and show you again. Of course, it's also being recorded, so you can watch it there that way. Great. So one of the things I advised was to, hello, I'm streaming. Do you need something?
I'm looking for the black computer charger.
I don't have any chargers out here. Unless, is it that one? That black one there?
That one?
Yeah?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you're on your own. So, so I'm going to keep this timeline, the website open, because you do need that. So I'll keep that in one tab. But the other thing that I really recommend is make a copy. Of course, that's how you get started. And then go ahead and run it through the timeline renderer so that you have a rendered timeline, even with this sample data. And then as you start working on it, every time you make a change in the spreadsheet, refresh the rendered timeline and see if that worked. If it worked, it should appear on the timeline. If it doesn't, it might break the timeline altogether or appear in an unusual way. And then you'll know, if you kind of check it frequently, you'll be able to tell what thing you did messed it up. And so you'll be able to undo that thing and then figure out the right way to do it. Right, so this is my copy now. I'm going to go ahead and just name this so that I don't forget what this is. And I'm just going to be putting in some data here. Oh, hey, I see Chosen Clown online. Good afternoon. Good to see you. So this is what we do next. We need to copy this whole bit here. Actually, let's read the instructions. So it says you get the spreadsheet template, which I did. And you don't want to change much about the spreadsheet. You definitely do not want to change anything in the headers, because that's how it finds the right information to put in the places it needs to put them. All right, so step 2, I need to publish to web. So let's do that. File, and then publish to the web. Publish the entire document. Yes, I'm sure. Okay, so that's that. Okay, what next? Oh, this is different. Okay, so I don't need to publish the entire document. I need to publish OD1. Okay, I missed that step. Okay, interesting. This is a new step. Okay, then blah blah blah. Great. Okay, so that's all I need to do then. I think. Let's find out. So, it's good to test it at this point because I haven't changed anything yet. And this way, if I test it and something's wrong, then I know that it's not something I did to it, if that makes sense. Like, it'll help me isolate the issue. So let's see, after we copy that URL, great. And then you paste it in here. And then it does what it needs to get all that. And here we go. Okay, so if it worked, then it should have constructed this like special URL that should be the rendered timeline with the demonstration data. I'm going to open this in a new window so that I can see it here, and it seems to be working. Great. So just to make sure that this is the actual timeline that I created here and not their demo, I'm going to go ahead and change something, and I like to do it left and right like this. So I'm going to make a change here. I'm going to just change my exact Google spreadsheet example, then go over to the rendered timeline and Control R to refresh that, and I can see that, yes, indeed, my data now appears here. Great. Off to a good start. So, yeah, now within this, you've got a lot of things you can do. The most obvious thing you can do is change the dates. One warning about the dates is that the first item should not have dates, as you see here, so that'll make sure that it shows up as the start slide. And so you should make your headline something like, the story of my Guitar Hero controller, or something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly that form, but something along those lines. And that'll help us get a good start. Also, you should include an image, but I'll show you how to do that in a moment. This is also a place that you should add some text that explains what this is. This is a timeline of key events and the whichever you're creating, maybe prehistory of this device. Whatever else you'd like to say there, but make it like, a decent sentence to help introduce people, to help get people into it. But again, leave this part here blank. Leave these first few columns there with the date information, leave that empty for now, because that'll be your start point. Okay, so within each of these slides, basically, as you see here, the main text is what they call the headline. So this should be something that kind of summarizes whatever is happening at that event. So you remember you should be going for a total of 10 events, but trying for 8 on the timeline you're focusing on, whether that's prehistory, lived history, or afterlife. As I've always said, do your best. You may find some of these will just be very hard to get to 8 events, even if you do a lot of work. So do your best, get as close as you can. But whatever you're talking about, you should give it a name, like name the event. If it's a lived history, it might be something like the time the screen cracked, or if you're talking about the prehistory, you might say this is when the IC chip number blah 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 was produced at a facility in the Philippines, or whatever it happens to be. So morning paw, 10 overall, right? So 8 for your timeline, and then 1 for each of the other 2 timelines that you haven't focused on, like ideally. So if you are doing the lived history, you would have 1 for the prehistory, 8 for your lived history, and then 1 for your afterlife. Yeah, ideally, right? I mean, do your best, but that's the idea. And then in that case, like if you're doing lived history, the afterlife might be like, I'm planning to recycle this, and here's a couple of ideas about what might happen. And then like if you're doing the lived history, the prehistory part might be something like, this was made in China, and I have a date. You might know what date it was made on if you look at it, depending on. Sometimes you'll see date codes on the outside, like of an assembled object, but not always. So do your best guessing there, best educated guesswork. I'm gonna see, like this is something like, okay, so this is kind of interesting. So actually I found that this is my little drawing pad thing, and I just noticed it literally just says manufactured in 2020 on the back, and assembled in China. Interesting, because assembled is different than made, right? Which kind of implies that some of the parts may have come from somewhere else, but it also does say made in China. And this is one of those like really cheap, like Chinese brands, electronics brands that are just make the one thing you're looking for. You find it on Amazon sometimes, and like this is all they make. So this is Inspiroi by Huoyan. I don't know. Anyway, it works fine. So the point is, yeah, sometimes you can find that literally like this was manufactured in 2020. I bought it in early 2021, so there was something that happened between then and then, but I don't know. Do your best. Okay, so let's talk a bit about some of the other things we can do here. And if you look at just this default one, there's already some pretty nice stuff you can try. One of them is if you look at just the like, we'll get to the images in a minute, but you notice how the background here is white here and then kind of gray and then farther black. You can change the background color on these, and that might be a good idea, especially if you are going to be differentiating your event by whichever timeline or like what kind of thing they are. You can actually include, as you see here, you can actually include an image, although it looks like perhaps that image isn't working. But anything you put in the background column is going to appear behind this right here. So in this case, something actually, there should be an image back there, but it's not loading, but you're seeing black instead. But what you see here, this dark gray color, that's indicated by this code here, this it's called a hexadecimal color code, and it's a £, and then 6 threes, and that just means dark gray, basically. If you want to get into hex colors, right, if you really want to get fancy with these colors, right, it could be fun, but you know, there's lots of ways you can find out about hex colors. I just Googled this. Okay, neat. So these are some nice hex colors. These are colors indicated, and then these are the hex codes that you would put in there. So if, let's say, I kind of like this pink. Let's take a look at this. So I'm just going to copy that hex code, #FF9FF6, and put that instead of the 33333, the 6 threes, and see how that looks in my rendered timeline just by Control-R to refresh. And let's see. Yeah, so that's quite pink. Maybe a little much, a little bit harder to read the white text on a pink background, but you know, that might work. So yeah, that's how you do that. And the group can also be interesting too, because you can put things essentially on different bands. So let's say if I'll make a couple of events here in a minute, but just for now, let's make a couple of groups. So let's do. Oh, we have era too. No, I don't want to get into that. But let's try just a start group. Okay, so we'll do prehistory for that one, and then let's do lived history here. And this is way like this would be helpful, I think, if you're having multiple from different points in the life of it. That's a good question, Morning Paw. You might not be able to actually. So I can try, but I don't think you can. So let me show you the groups first, and then I'll try the text color. So if I refresh this, this should show grouping, but I don't see the grouping actually applying anything here. So that didn't do what I expected it to. Did I do something wrong? Prehistory, lived history. Make sure that saves. I expected that to show up differently. I expected that to make different bands on the like vertical bands here, but maybe that's not working currently, or maybe I'm forgetting how to do that. Well, as you see, a lot of times it's just sort of, let's play with something and see what happens. Let's see if I change that to era. Let's see what happens there. Oh, I don't want to share it. That might do something, but I'm not sure how an arrow would, whoa, neat. I'm not sure how an arrow would be attached to a specific event like that. Yeah, that didn't do what I wanted it to. So yeah, it actually removed that. So that's no longer acting as an event. It's just sort of making that larger band. So I need to remove that. Oops, nope. I don't want title. Stop. It keeps trying to make this a title. I don't want it to be a title. Okay. All right. This is a slightly annoying thing about their template. You can't undo this, but I'm trying to just change the data validation on here so that it makes me allowed to include a null value, which is what I need to put there. So you wouldn't have to do this normally if you don't do what I did. Like if you leave the type column alone, you won't have to fix that, but that's how you fix it if you need to. Okay, so Morning asked about the color, and I don't know of a way to change it because really this just lets you put things in here, and there's no option for changing the text color. They used to have themes for these, I think, but I don't see that option anymore. Let's see if they have any. So, I mean, here's the frequently asked questions. Let's see if there's anything about this down here. So you can override the timeline styles. I don't know if I would want to, though. Yeah, this is as I say, this is non-trivial. So you would basically have to rebuild the whole rendering engine. That makes it, that takes it from a spreadsheet into the interactive thing that we see there. Yeah, that's what I thought I was doing with groups here, but I didn't do that. Maybe I need to have more than one event for each group so that it actually shows up. I don't know. Well, anyway, there are some good questions answered here, Morning Paul, but I don't think you can change the text color, at least not easily. So I would recommend not, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's see. Let me take a look at a few other things you might want to do. I'm going to try something here. Actually, I want to see if I can just make this group thing work because I wanted it to work. So I just made a copy of an event, and it should. Yeah, so I'll change the date so that it doesn't show up on top of each other, but this will be a very similar event with a different date. Embedding Vimeo here. And let's see how that looks. But I'm wondering if, oh, there it goes. So now I get the grouping on the left. Maybe I just needed to have more than one event in here. So yeah, the two Vimeos now show up in different dates. Okay. All right, so that was all I needed to do. But what you're seeing now, I have the banding on the left, just sort of right here over my shoulder, and you would of course be able to add those as many times as you need to. Just make sure you spell it the same way, because if I were to misspell one of these, it wouldn't know that they're the same, and then it would just make an additional group for that. Of course, you could fix that by just retyping it. All right, so so far so good, hopefully. So for the date stuff, by the way, you don't need to have year, month, day, time in order for it to work with timeline. Of course, if you do have that information from your research, that would be great. Please put it in there. But you don't. You just have to have one. Like you have to have at least a year, and then everything else should work fine. You also don't need to have an end date at all, actually, because in many cases you won't. Right, so you'll just have, like, I know that this happened on this particular week or whatever, so that's fine. So these will just show up as on the band that shows up here on the bottom. These now, because they don't have a range, they'll just show up as like pinned to a specific date, and that's fine. Or or at the beginning of a year, if we just know the year in that case. All right, so you want to make sure you just have numbers here, and don't do something like, don't write like October, because that will very likely break it. In fact, you see those little orange warning things saying, actually, warning, this must be a number between 1 and 12. Let's see what happens if I try to reload it that way. Yeah, so you'll get this kind of error if you put anything in the year, date, month, that stuff. If you put anything in here that's not a number, then that's going to happen. So make sure that you always use numbers for those. Okay, great. So things seem to be moving along here. Again, if you have questions, of course, please jump in here. But as you can see, a lot of the questions may be answered on the Timeline.js website. So you're certainly, I would say, look there first, if you have a question. Okay, so we've covered the headlines. That's going to be the major text that appears there. The date will always appear just above the headline. So that's going to be like this part right here where it says October 2011. So just, well, I can't quite reach all the way over there, but it will appear just above the headline. and you can decide how it looks. If you want it to look, if you want it to say October 2011, or you might, if you want to say something else entirely, like you can make anything in this, you know, you could put Octoberish, and that would probably work. Yeah, so that's a place. If you have a more like vague way that you want to indicate the date, then you could do it that way, just by writing in whatever you need to make that say what you want it to. Okay, then the headline, of course, is this bit here, the large text, all caps. It will always show up in all caps, and then you can have some text here. You know, I don't remember if we can add links within the text here, come to think of it. Let me just try real quick. I think you cannot, but I'm going to try to type a link, an HTML tag for a link, and see if it works. My hunch is that this will not work. Wait, which one did I add that to? Oh yeah, so the first Vimeo example. Yeah, no, it didn't work. Okay, so that's all right. Yeah, I was trying to put a link in there. I guess what you could do is you can probably just put the, you know, going against my advice from earlier, right? You probably can just put a bare URL like that, and that would probably be clickable. Let's find out. Really? Should be showing up here, but it is not. I wonder if it just automatically trims it. Just to make sure that it's updating, let me see. Invalid date. I didn't change the date. Okay, so it's always kind of interesting and useful to break things and then try to fix them, but I don't really understand what it's complaining about because the dates are all numbers. But but you notice it did that after I added this statement, can I add a URL? Which is strange. Huh. That's weird. So it didn't like the question mark in this textual description, I think. Let's see. Adding that question mark might break the parsing. Oh, that's fascinating, but kind of frustrating. So, okay, so it could be the problem is the question mark followed by the URL. Let's see if I just delete the URL, because surely a question mark is a fairly typical punctuation. Okay, interesting. So you probably won't run into that specific bug, but it's interesting that I found that. So the bug was if you have a question mark followed by HTTP, then it somehow breaks the parsing, because the parsing is what happens whenever the software on Timeline.js's website tries to read the contents of this spreadsheet, make sense of it, and then render it. And so something happened in the making sense part, and something about the way I typed that triggered that. So that's interesting. That is actually a bug in the software. So I will try to figure out why it's doing that and see if I can report that. Anyway, so let's talk about embedding media and putting things in here, because that's probably something you would like to do. Colin had a question about that earlier today, I think, or was it Captain? Either Colin or Captain. Sometimes I forget who's who because I don't know either of you other than screen names. But yeah, you can certainly put media into each of these, and you should. Like, you should try to have media for each event if possible. So that could be a photo, or it could be lots of different things, in fact. So let's try out a couple of these. I've got 4 slides here to work with, and these are all images. Now let me show you how to put an image in, because that's probably the most straightforward thing to do, but you know, there are a couple ways you can do it wrong. No, I do want to make that big. Okay, no, I don't want to make this bigger. All right, so basically what's happening here, when you put something in this media column, the software for Timeline.js will go out and try to figure out what it needs to get to embed media from that location into your rendered timeline. and it's already pre-configured and it understands quite a few specific websites like Flickr and Vimeo, like you can see here. So if you find an image on Flickr and you put it in here, it's probably going to show up. So let's see if we can do that. Let's go to flickr.com and let's find an image. Let's find CRT TV because those are cool. And yeah, okay. This one, kind of a creepy looking picture. Actually, let's go back here and let's search for images that we actually have permission to use. So let's go for Creative Commons videos or pictures. And yeah, okay, that's all right, I guess. So let's see if we can get a link to it and put it into our slideshow. So okay, let's try this one. This is a shortened link. Let's see if this will work. I'll put it in the front page or the main bit here so that it's easy enough to see if it works or not. Nope, it defaulted back to the original one. So let's try that again. Okay, for some reason it's loading the old one and not the new one. Interesting. So I would expect it either to just have an error or something because it shouldn't be loading the old ones. That's interesting. Let me see if we can figure out another way to get access to this image. Not that this image is that great. I mean, it's fine, but let's see. Let's take a look at it and see if we can get a direct link to it. All right, so here's an image. Let me try to open it. I know you can't see the context menu when I right click, but I'm gonna right click and then open image in new tab. And that's gonna give me a URL like this. So this ends in .jpeg. And that means that this is probably a fully justified URL and it will probably work. But so far, I'm having a little bit of an issue here with this thing. So let's see if this will work. I'm not so sure. Well, there it is. Okay, so I don't know why it didn't work the first time. But if you can see what I did is I went to this and then I right click and then I was able to get the image address for this one. Of course, that one's, I copied the full size, but the timeline just embedded the right, it compressed it automatically. So it's a good size for the timeline display. You don't have to worry too much about the overall size of the image except for the basic dimensions, width and height. So this is pretty much a square image, and that looks fine the way it appears here. All right, so Vimeo is a video sharing site, and you can embed, if you link to a Vimeo video, it will embed from there. Let's see if I can just find I don't know, let's look for a random video to embed. I don't know, you're looking at my recommendations here now. Let's see, let's go with, I don't know, this video of this guy running. So let's say we want to embed this video. You don't have to get the whole share code, like the URL for all that. You can just copy the address for it up here. Right click, copy, or Control C, and then put that into somewhere in your timeline. It always has to be in the media thing, but notice that the URL is just youtube.com/all that, and it should work. So let's see. Vimeo example, and yeah, and here's the other, the title of that says Flickr example, which is confusing, so let me change that, put that here. So this is a YouTube example, and that seems to work. So yeah, there we go. So that's how you embed YouTube. You just put the URL for it, and then it figures out the embed code that it needs in order to fit it into this presentation. So that's it. Where'd it go? There it is. Yeah, so that is YouTube. Now there are a couple other types of embeds that I know. There are probably more actually, but if you look at it, let's see. If one of the things that we're interested in here is the. Yeah, that's my home address. Maybe I don't want to put that on the stream. Let me just do that in a separate window here for a second. And what was I looking for? Yeah, yesterday I found, and I showed you all how to find some things in the Philippines, some addresses that seemed to correspond to the manufacturing facility for my device. So let me see, I'm gonna find that address real quick. I didn't do it on this computer, so I'm gonna have to do a little bit of work to find that again, that address, but give me a second here. I'm doing that in another window so I don't share my local Google Maps. So you all don't see where I live. All right, so I'm going to the Cyprus website and looking for their, yeah, there they are, their address for in the Philippines. Okay. So there we are. So this is the probable location. Let's see. This is, I can probably get a bit more specific than this. I did. Yeah, there they are. So that's the address, and I want to. Oh, that's like their parking lot. Hang on. Okay, so it's one of these places, and I want to. Wasn't Cyprus manufacturing? Hang on, that's not the right. It's Cyprus. And I lost the tab that I was looking at that in. Where'd that go? This was the chip from my the mouse that I took apart. Yeah, this was the one I found, I think. Yeah, there it is. Okay, well, I don't know why I didn't lock onto the right address there, but that's fine, because what we need in this case is we're trying to embed a map into our timeline, which we can do. So I'm going to grab the URL for this search result here, just copy and paste that. So just Control C and then stick that into timeline. Let's do this one. Okay. And it's obviously a very long URL, but this should be an embedded map. Let's see if that worked. Didn't refresh. Let's try again. It did not work. Okay, so this should be the one that has the title Another Vimeo Example, and did not actually update. Let's try again. It didn't update at all. Did not take my update. Okay, so sometimes these things take trial and error, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trialing until I get it to work. It is not updating at all, which is frustrating. It's not actually taking any of this, so let me just delete that real quick and see if that's the problem, but it shouldn't be. Like, it didn't update the headline either. That's what's confusing. Okay, so now it updated the title. Interesting. All right, so let's take a look at the instructions. Maybe there is something here about maps that I'm missing. There is Story Map.js, which is a different product, which does work pretty well. Supported media types. Google Maps. says Google Maps should work, and it just say here that you should use the URL for the Google Maps page unless you're using blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I'm not using Street View, so okay. According to the instructions, this should work. Maybe it just got stuck with a cached version. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. I don't know what happened before. I did it the same way, but maybe it just got stuck and needed to refresh. So yeah, so it's an embedded map of that location that I was interested in. And if you have several locations, especially if you've found out some things from the prehistory, it would be great to embed these in here just like that. You can also make let's say you have a picture of the chip or of the circuit board, you can make that picture a background of the slide so that you see kind of the circuit board context for your component, and then you see like a geographic reference to its like manufacturing context and its original context there as it was made. Okay, good. So a couple other notes about media. One way you can get media if you have like something and you want to take a photo of it. In order to get it into the spreadsheet here, you cannot just upload it to the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet doesn't store media. It just has links to media. So what you'll need to do first is upload it somewhere. You could upload it to Flickr and you can embed it the way I showed you just now. I like to use Imager just because it's a little bit like more temporary feeling. So if you go to imager.com, make a free account, then you can create a video. A thing that you can do, this is, I just clicked on this random one here. One thing you'll need to know is if you want to embed a video, embed an image from Imager, you have to get the actual image URL. So open image in new tab. That's one way to do it. You want to make sure that it ends in .png or .jpeg or .gif. Oh, did I miss a squirrel? I just saw that. Oh yeah, there he is. He's out of the camera shot, but he's still over there, I think. Oh no, is he in the shot? Yeah, there he is. Hey buddy. All right. Yeah, so get the full URL that ends in a PNG or JPEG or maybe GIF, but usually PNG or JPEG. Copy that and then put that into the media column just like anything else that you were trying to embed. And then it'll figure out what it needs to from there. Now, one thing worth talking about here is the media credit. So if you took this picture, then you are the author of this picture, and then you can say, your name can be the credit for that. If this is not a picture that you took, in other words, if this is the picture that you are posting, sorry, I saw that question, Colin, I'll get to that in a second. If this is an image that you found on Flickr, for example, then you have to look for the rights on this image. This is some rights reserved by R4VI, and you can add credits for that by saying, by adding them into this credits here. So which one was it? Yeah, this one. So here you would want to say CRT TV image CC licensed by Flickr user R4VI. So that gives them credit, right? Which is what they've asked for. If you look down here when it says some rights reserved, it says we do have the attribution. We do have permission to use this as long as we give them credit. And so I've done that by adding that credit there. And so I am free and clear legally to do that. Now, if you go to a Google image search, I've said this before, but if you go to a Google image search, you are not free and clear to use those images. They do not belong to you, and you are violating copyright if you use those. That said, for this kind of thing, technically you're embedding it from somewhere else, and so you aren't really violating copyright as much. So I'm not really going to police this, but it's something that you should know about. Also, let me show you a common mistake some people might make here, and this is something that will definitely not work. So if you go to Google Images and you search CRT TV, I don't know why I'm interested in that, and you think, oh, this is a good one. Click on that. You might think, well, okay, how do I get the URL for this, right? So you might think, well, share, maybe that's it. You notice, by the way, it keeps reminding me this is actually subject to copyright. So I really shouldn't use this, but let's say I do want to copy this. If I copy this URL and I try to embed it, it's definitely not going to work. So it's going to be a super long URL perhaps, but it's actually not a link. It's not a URL for an image. It's a link to a search result. So it's a link to some content within Google Images search, not an image itself. And so it won't work. I'm pretty sure it won't work. Let's just check. But I'm pretty sure this is gonna. Well, I thought it might break the whole thing, but yeah, you see here it just broke that thing down. So I got the broken image link. So that's the deal there, right? So make sure you're linking to an actual full image, but also make sure you have permission to use an image. And if you take an image yourself, you know you have permission to use it. So that's kind of the best case scenario. All right, so Colin asked about embedding in a blog post. So let me show you how to do that. That'll be the final step. And also this blog post that I will show you here in a moment, this is what you actually should turn in Canvas. So the timeline will be linked to or embedded in the blog post, but I'm more interested in your thoughts. So make sure you write something around it. So it's not just a link to a timeline, but your reflection on the process, what you learned, what you found surprising, what you found hard, and then actually link to the timeline within that. So I'm logging into my domains dashboard so that I can show you this in an actual WordPress dashboard, which I think everyone's using WordPress. Oh no, not everyone is, but who was it, Harper? I think you're using something different, but I trust you can figure out how to do the same thing inside of Wix. All right, so yeah, I need to look into that, but I'm still having that issue with my security certificate, but it's not a big deal. I mean, I trust the site, like I made the site, so I trust it. But yeah, in other situations, you would not normally just trust a site if it tells you that the security certificate is invalid. Cool. So I'm going to make a post, not a page. I'm going to make a post, and I'm going to include some things here. So object lesson. In this assignment, we had to learn about the life cycle of electronic objects, and I investigated a Guitar Hero controller. You know, say more than that, but that, you know, something like that, right, to get started, and then reflect on what you actually found out about your thing. Right, so then we just need to embed it. So these are going to be very big embeds, so you have to decide, do you want to embed it or do you want to link to it? Like have someone click a link and then look at it in a new window. I actually prefer having someone click a link to view it in another window, which is, just a matter of linking to it. Into a interactive presentation using timeline.js. There we go. And then make this, let's say, the link. And you just, for WordPress, you just highlight something and then you click the chain icon and then you type the URL. I also do want to make this open in a new tab. So I checked that box. Now, all you got to do, really, this URL that I'm looking at here, this is the live URL, the one that I've been previewing as I've been working on it. So in this case, I would just need to select that URL, copy that. So select, then Control-C or right-click copy, and then paste that in here. So this is a perfectly valid way to do it, and probably what I would recommend. Now, to embed it, we have to do something a little different, but that's also fine if you want to do it that way. So if I'm going back to the main page, where did I? Well, I'll do this. So this is the main page, and then whenever you paste the URL back here, it gives you this link, which is what I was previewing a minute ago, and it also gives you this iframe code, which is what you can embed somewhere else. And so this is all HTML, and you just have to put it anywhere that you can post HTML. I am just going to select all that and then Control-C, and that puts it on my clipboard. So let's see if we can embed this. Now, I don't, as I frequently said, I don't use this block editor very often, so I have to figure out how to do this here. I'm going to try this one. Nope, that one's not going to work. Let's try, well, You know, this one might work, but I'm not going to do it yet. I'm gonna do it the more old-fashioned way first, and then I'll come back and see if that one works too. Okay, so I'm just going to click Add Block, and then since I have on my clipboard right now, I have arbitrary HTML. So I have this iframe, which is what Timeline.js gave me, and I'm going to paste that in here into this HTML block. So this is a special block in WordPress that removes all the styling and everything else. It's just letting me type my basic stuff here. Actually, nice. You can change the font in the URL. Huh, okay. I don't really want to right now, but that's okay. So let's see how this looks. Yeah, okay. So there it is. All right, so that is trying to embed it. I think it's failing because it's using the placeholder one. But let's see if I can fix that. So, all right, let me actually embed the one I just created. All right, where was that? There. Okay, that was the weird link I made. Let me copy the URL for this. Go back here and regenerate the embed code. Yeah, that's a different one. Okay, so then let me copy my iframe code again to make sure that this will actually work. Yeah, that looks different anyway. So I guess I can also preview it right here. Yeah, so that just lets me preview it in line to make sure it works, but then previewing it in the published page is also a good idea. Yeah, there we go. Nice, and it's actually full width. It automatically figures out how wide to be, and that looks nice. Now that's pretty wide. That's what I was saying, is like it really does kind of take over your blog. So that might be too wide. It might also not play very well with different themes. Like this one has plenty of room to spread out in, so this one's fine. But if you're using another theme that kind of puts your post in a little box, then you might have a hard time with this. It might not look that great. So just bear that in mind. You might want to weigh that as a factor in terms of how it appears in your blog post, but whichever one you do is totally fine. The main thing I'm interested in is making sure the timeline works, of course. So I do want to see it, but also have some text here to explain it and reflect on it. And that's it. All right, so all right, cool. So, and I just saw Noah's question in Discord. Yeah, PlayStation controller would be great, especially like you say, how to take it apart and put it back together. I mean, a couple of drawbacks are that they're very small, and I bet they have, well, depending on which era of PlayStation, I guess, but they might not have a whole lot of chips on them. But yeah, I think just in general, yeah, it's fine. And I don't think I've ever taken one apart. I know Nintendo controllers, like the old NES controllers, are actually very simple on the inside, but they do have, I think, one chip on them. But yeah, PS controller should be good. I mean, because you'd have it has the vibration stuff in it, so that would be part of the processing. So it's probably a chip dedicated to that. Yeah, so small screws are tricky. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to go tell you to go out and buy special tools, but there are special tools. If you go to I don't know what you have access to or what's convenient for you or what you want to do, but if you go, even Home Depot sometimes has these electronic repair kits. Let's see what they got. Yeah, so something like this is, well, kind of nice. I don't know. I don't know what they have in it. But yeah, a lot of times will have these super small little bits for different kinds of things. Okay, yeah, if you have one, that's great. But sometimes on certain controllers, and I don't have any here, but for certain Nintendo things, it'll be I have to just kind of show you with my hands, but Philips head usually looks like a plus sign or an X. But for certain Nintendo devices, it's actually 3 wings, so you have to have a special screwdriver for it, and you really can't do it with another one or you'll break it. But these electronics repair kits, they'll usually include one of those tri-wings. There's also a pyramid shaped one. There's also one that looks sort of it's like a dome with ridges around the sides. That's the Super Nintendo one, and it's really hard, but you have to get basically a special screwdriver for it. Even the bit usually doesn't work. But I mean, I have all those, and normally, if we're doing this in person, I would just loan those to you. But they have them here. I've also heard that if you go to like the break iFix stores, they will often have those kits, and they could either loan it out to you or sell you one, or like the Batteries Plus place apparently has them too. So, I mean, they can be had, but you know, for the purposes of this assignment, you might be better off just looking for something with straightforward Phillips head. Like if you can find something else to go for, something else that you can get to more easily, then that would be fine. Yeah, sure. Radio, your local radio, like, do those exist? Do local Radio Shacks still exist? If they do, then yeah, great. I don't know. I don't know. Best Buy might have them too, though. But Best Buy is a hit or miss, I think, for DIY electronics. Maybe Walmart actually too. I don't know, but really, I mean, I don't want you to. I mean, it is useful sometimes to have those on hand, like when things break and you do need to fix them. But you know, I hate to ask you to buy something that you would only use for this assignment and then never touch again. You know. Another thing, by the way, that's really handy is like, you know, I have this pen here. It's a stylus on one end, but you can unscrew it, and it's got a tiny flathead and a tiny Phillips head. You know, so this is actually really a convenient thing to have. There's a sort of a meme of video of two guys playing with one of these pens and like flipping out how awesome it is because it has rulers on it. Like it's got standard and metric rulers. It's a pen, right? It's a stylus. You know, this is great. It's got a level, like a water level in it. This is great. So anyway, I'm kind of wrapping things up today because I have been going about an hour. If you do have any questions you'd like for me to answer on the screen, then let me know. I'd be happy to. Otherwise, I can answer questions in the chat, of course. I mean, like you saw, sometimes it just takes some trial and error. Sometimes it takes refreshing it. I will say the nice thing about working in Timeline.js actually is if you mess something up and you can't figure out what you did, and you want me to take a look at it, one thing you can do is you can just share the spreadsheet with me, and then I can look at your spreadsheet, see what's wrong, and try to fix it, or show you how to fix it, or whichever, right? That's often more efficient, really, than going through the whole process of asking you to explain what you did, because if I just look at it and see it, then I can just tell you, oh yeah, you got this thing out of place. But yeah, the main things that cause problems are you make sure your dates are numbers. Make sure you don't skip a row, right? So if there's a blank row anywhere in here, it'll cause problems. Also, you might have noticed you don't actually have to put these in the rows in chronological order, because the timeline software will figure that out. As long as you have a date for it, it'll put them in the right order when it renders them. So don't worry about how they're written here. The other things, yeah, make sure your media links are, make sure that it's a link to an image. Make sure it's an image you have permission to use, or that you cite accordingly if it's not your own image. Yeah, just kind of reiterating some things here. All right, well, I need to go get a drink of water. I'm very thirsty, so I'm going to go do that. But I will be online in Discord for a bit, so if you have questions there, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll wrap up the stream, and this is it for this week. So we'll be back on Monday. Monday will be week 4 of this class, and week 4 will be really the last bit of content. Week 5 will mainly just be wrapping up and reflecting and cleaning up loose ends, basically. So week 4, 2 pretty exciting things going on next week in terms of projects, but I don't want to talk about that yet because I want you to focus on the object lesson. So get that done, turn it in as soon as you can. If you have any questions, of course, let me know. All right, cool. So I will switch to the outro scene, and I will wish you all a good day. See you later.